Hi everyone, Russell here again. So today I'll be showing you how to install a new racing steering rack, which I purchased from JSPORTS. And first off, they have been absolutely amazing to deal with. Talking to Adam, the customer service, the communication is something better than I've experienced with any company out there yet. And they have a high quality product. So today I'll just show you step by step on how to put in the new steering rack. I also purchased the tie rod ends from JSPORT and installed those. After everything's installed, an alignment will need to be done, but I've already previously made a how-to alignment video for the Honda Talon. So I'm gonna just drop that link in the description. So once you follow all the steps in the video, you can pull up that link. So before I got started on this, it was pretty intimidating because there's a lot of things that you have to do. But overall, it took about 2 hours. So, I mean, you do have to pull both front tires off, all 4 ball joints, so 2 ball joints on each side. You have to pull both the axles. You have to separate the front differential. You also have to remove the front bumper, separate the front differential from the 4-wheel drive clutch, and pull it out, and then the steering rack drops out really easily. So it's very intimidating initially when you look at everything that has to be done, but things, I mean, just go so quick and everything's so easy. So hopefully this will help you out. I do have a couple hundred miles on the steering rack, and one thing it's going to do is a quicker ratio, so you're not going to have to turn the steering wheel as much to get from far left to far right. It does turn slightly sharper, but you can't make it turn a ton sharper because it's going to bind the axles and cause axle issues. So it's a lot tighter filling. That's more of a race filling. That's a lot higher quality. It's also greasable. So, you know, my plan is every time I change the oil, I'm gonna just slowly put grease in it while I have the front end lifted, and slowly put grease in it as I go from like left to right on there, just to put a little more in there. But it's a lot tighter fill. So if you don't like the slop in the factory steering rack, and you want to do some higher speed, some cross-country stuff, I highly recommend getting this steering rack from JSPORTS. I believe the steering rack is about $800, and the tie rods were under $300 to do both of them. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Again, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. All right, so this is basically what everything looks like after I have it installed and the alignment complete. These tie rods are more than double the strength of the factory ones. Very happy with the quality. I do have 14-inch wheels, so they do fit on there with no clearance issues. The steering rack down there is just about the same size as the factory, so there's no issues there whatsoever. Just a smoother, tighter feel in the cab when you're driving. All right, so step one, we're going to take off the front bumper, which you have the two 12mm bolts right there, one 12mm bolt here, and then you have the 2 Allens that go on the side. And then if you have a winch, take for me it was 2 10mm nuts off, and then the entire front bumper comes off. Once you have your bumper off, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, this side's still assembled, but I'll show you on this side. Took the ball joint out on the bottom, took the ball joint out on the top, and one helpful tip is get a ball joint separator because those were super tight and pretty violent coming out. So get a 3/4 inch ball joint separator to separate the top and the bottom. Okay, so I separated the top one as well. I just put it back in there so it's not dangling from the brake line. And then, let's see, we'll go to this side. So right here you have a 30mm nut, or I believe 1 3/8 will work, but that's a 30mm nut. So you'll take the cotter pin out, pull that nut out. Once you separate the top and the bottom, then you can pull that out. Next tip as far as this goes, Do not pull on the axle to get it out of the differential. Do not like grab right here or on the end and pull that out. So these actually remove a lot easier than the rear axles. What I did is I just took a screwdriver and a hammer and did a couple gentle taps on that, and the axle just popped out. So that's what I recommend, because if you pull on this axle here, you can separate it inside. Then you're gonna have to take it apart, reassemble it. So like I said, do not pull on the axle to get it out. So this is what it looks like with the ball joint separator. Highly, highly recommend purchasing one of those. Those are in there super, super, super tight. All right, so here on the back side of the differential, there's 2 push pins. One right there on the top. Let's see, pull that out. And one right there on the bottom. We're gonna move those out. Then you're gonna have these wires right here. There's going to be a 10mm nut right there and a 10mm bolt right there in the middle. And we're gonna take that off, undo all those connections, remove those so we can split the front differential from the i4 wheel drive clutch. All right, once you get that bracket out, that's what it looks like. So there's a nut down there and a 10mm bolt there. And you just have to, on the back side of each of those wire connectors, you just have to squeeze it together on the back side and pop out, like, looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 connectors you'll have to pop out to get the bracket. And you just squeeze it on the back side, and then you can push the connectors out. All right, so this is what it looks like once you get the front differential out. Okay, a little easier to show here, but there's 3 bolts that go in from the back facing forward. And you just take out those 3 bolts, 2 on the passenger side, 1 on the driver's side, and then just give this a gentle tug. And there's actually an O-ring on the part that stays in, on the clutch that stays in on the side-by-side. I did take, so here's a speed sensor. I did take the speed sensor out on the driver's side just because it was hard to get to the connector to release it. So there's just 2 8mm bolts. So I pulled out the one on the other side. Let me see if so I just pulled that one out and then just slid it right out the front. All right, so this is what it looks like once the front differential is out. I have that covered up just to keep any dirt and debris off the clutch for the 4-wheel drive. And then right here is going to be the steering rack, which I already have loose. But just to get a little view here from the top, so I do have a heater with the windshield wiper mount, windshield wiper kit. So it makes it a little more difficult for me. If you have a heater, it's going to be located in a different spot if you don't have the wiper kit. But the 4 bolts are right down there. I just used 3 extensions and a swivel down on the bottom, and those came out really easy. All right, so here's the old steering rack. It had 4 studs in it. I've already removed 2. So what I'm doing to remove those is just put 2 nuts on there, tighten those 2 nuts up, and then back the studs out. And then I just transferred the studs over to the new steering rack. Or an easier option for you is just to pick up a couple of M10 bolts, leave the studs in here, and just put bolts in to mount that again. So whatever's easier for you. I didn't have any M10 bolts handy, so I'm just swapping the studs. It's probably going to take me 15 minutes, but it's pretty easy. All right, so now we're going to start transferring stuff over. Okay, so you can undo this clip here and this clip here, and once you've done so, you can slide it over, and then we're going to separate these 2 pieces to transfer over to the new one. If you put a little WD-40 here on the end, or some grease or anything, something like that, it'll help slide that over and down to the end. All right, so on the steering rack itself, I just put a 22mm end wrench right on there to hold that side, and then a pair of channel locks on this side. Okay, and then once you break it loose, I was just able to twist it out by hand. And then on the end of there, this is going to go back in just like that. So we're going to put that into the new steering rack and tighten it up on both sides. All right, so we have this reassembled. We have new bands on here. We have the clamps back on. We have it tightened down in there. And so I'm electing to put it on the JSPORT tie rod ends as well. This is an option I recommend, but you don't have to. You could just leave it on there. So what I'm doing is I'm adjusting these. I'm lining them up. I can't do it very well on camera, but I'm basically lining this up to get them as close as possible before I tighten everything up, just to make the alignment process easier once it's back together. So I'm gonna do this on both sides, get it as close as possible, tighten it down, put it in, and then do an alignment. All right, we got everything kind of roughly measured out. So I'm just going to put it back in, the steering rack back in, and then I'll put the tie rods on after the steering rack's in and tightened up. All right, so I just have one bolt holding the steering rack in place there, and that's the top left bolt on the passenger side. And it's hard to see, but let's see if I can squeeze the camera in here. Okay, so before we tighten up the bottom side, we're going to slide that on and get that into place before tightening the steering rack at all. All right, I have that 10mm bolt tightened up. Keep in mind there's a little groove, so that has to be placed perfectly. A little groove for the bolt to go through on the shaft. And got all 4 of those bolts, so that's a 10mm bolt right there. And we have 4 14mm nuts that need to be tightened up. All right, so I have the front differential already out, but that's not necessary to replace these 2 seals. You just have to pull the axles. So we're just going to pry this out and put the new ones in. All right, to take out this seal, I just gently put that on the back side and slowly pry that out. Really easy to get out. And then of course I have my new one right there. All right, I actually got this back in just by pushing it in with my fingers. And then just to make sure I had it all the way in, I gently tapped it with a rubber mallet right around here. And if you look on the inside in there, I can't get my camera, but look on the inside and make sure it's pushed all the way up against the lip. All right, so we have the front diff connected back up, so tighten up 1 bolt on this side, 2 bolts on the other side, and then put the front diff in place. So you have your 14mm here, 14mm there, and the 14mm right there. So the diff is good to go now. All right, so before we put this back in the front diff on both sides, I'm going to clean this exceptionally well so there's no dirt. There was a bunch of grime here on the lip. So I'm gonna get that cleaned off, and then I'm gonna put a thin coat of grease on it and then slide it back into the front diff. All right, so a quick rundown. We got that metal bracket back on, all the connectors back in, the 2 push pins right there and right there in. We have the 3 bolts that hold the front differential in. We have the 3 bolts that you can't see right now that hold the differential to the clutch tightened up. We have the differential filled with oil again. We have the tie rods hooked up. The tie rods tightened down. These are 15mm. Got those snugged up, but this is still loose, so we can adjust it, the alignment. So I haven't tightened that up. Top ball joint tightened down. Bottom ball joint tightened down with cotter pins in both of those. Tighten the 30mm nut down for the axle with cotter pins in. We got the front bumper back in, so the 2 bolts up here, 1 bolt there, and 2 on the side, on both sides. And now we're just ready for tires and alignment. And again, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I started doing this never thinking that, you know, I would have this many views or subscribers. I greatly appreciate all the positive support and you guys watching, and hopefully these videos are helping you out as well. So again, thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, and thank you for all the positive support.